For 2 weeks, judiciary hopefuls have been put through a grueling interview process. Our news editor Dianne Hawker has kept a close eye on how the interviews have been going, and she joins us now to take a closer look. Dianne, certainly the presence of Judge President John Hlophe was always going to be, somewhat controversial. He was always going to be the elephant in the room.
Yes, absolutely, Bongi. In fact, before these proceedings began, we did see that there were some civil society groups such as Freedom Under Law, as well as the Cape Bar, who were saying that Judge Hlophe should actually not be allowed to participate. But speaking to the Judicial Service Commission throughout the course of the day, they were saying that based on where the process is at this point, with the tribunal having made its decision, but the JSC not having finalized that decision as yet, there was no legal basis or no grounds for them to disallow him from participating. What was really interesting, in fact, about his presence here, Bongi, is that although there were 6 candidates and he had the first option of asking the candidates questions, he didn't ask any questions throughout those interviews. All he did was say that he confirms whether they have or have not acted at the High Court in the Western Cape. In some instances, he referred to how he considers some of those candidates to be friends, or in some cases he said, I consider this candidate my sister, and then said he wouldn't ask any questions and handed over to the Western Cape Premier, who was given the opportunity to ask questions next. So, I mean, he traveled to this commission today and participated presumably in the final decision-making process, but it is notable that other judge presidents actually participated from where they are located. Like, for example, Justice Mandisa Maya from the Supreme Court of Appeal, she is coming in via Zoom and is participating presumably from Bloemfontein, whereas he came and was in the very room with some of the people who will make the decision on his future going forward. So for me, that was something that was, of course, very interesting to watch. Another thing that was interesting to see, Bongi, was the question that came mainly from Advocate Glynis Breitenbach. It was the same question asked to all the candidates about what did they think of a judge who is facing a misconduct finding, still continuing to work as a judge. And although she said it was a hypothetical question, most of the candidates actually responded by saying that they were aware that it was relating to Judge Hlophe, and some declined to comment on that question. It obviously would put them in a difficult position, considering that he is still the judge president of the court that they were applying to actually be members of. So those are some of the issues that have come out here today, Bongi.
And certainly, Dianne, one of the other things that then came up, apart from the candidates having to now then field these very difficult questions, there have also been, some of the friendships that then have come into play here. Some of the questions, including a close friendship that one of the candidates has then with, the judge president's wife.
Yes, absolutely, Bongi. In relation to Advocate Hack, he actually indicated that he had represented Judge Hlophe's wife in a dispute that she had with her ex-husband over maintenance, and that he was a very close friend of the family. I think he mentioned to the commission that he in fact held her baby just 2 weeks after the child was initially born, and this is a child from her previous relationship. So that kind of just gave a sense of the closeness of that relationship. And there were questions from the commissioners here as to whether a candidate who has that kind of close relationship should be admitted to a bench where there seems to be quite a lot of tension amongst the members of that bench. We know that the deputy judge president at that court has laid a complaint against Judge Hlophe, which is still meant to be adjudicated, and there's been reports about other conflict at that bench. But the candidates who spoke here today actually said that even though there might be that tension, that the High Court in the Western Cape is operating well, and they actually said that it hasn't ground to any kind of halt. It's continuing to do its work despite this tension. But one can see that was amongst the considerations here when you look at those who were selected. The ones who were selected would be Matthew Francis, as well as Advocate Nobahle Lockwood, who I've forgotten the second part of her surname there. So they were actually selected based on what they told to the Commission here. A number of very strong candidates, but those were the ones that were actually successful, Bongi.
And looking at, talking about Ms. Lockwood, definitely, hearing concerns from her, even about the bar, and how difficult then, the work of a black advocate. And she even went as far as saying, female even. It's even worse for you if you're black and female in the Cape Bar. Certainly a very strong statement that she made there.
Yes, absolutely, Bongi. I mean, it's been one of the issues that has actually come out throughout the proceedings, starting from last week, Monday, with the candidates who are applying for the Constitutional Court, all saying that it is very difficult to be a woman lawyer because they don't get the same type of briefs that their male counterparts had, but even more difficult to be a black woman lawyer. And Ms. Manglu Lockwood actually saying that in the time that she's been at the Cape Bar, there have only been 16 black female advocates at the bar, which is a very low statistic if one considers that in some of the bars there are more than 100 practicing advocates. She was saying that the type of work that she got exposed to while being on the bench was far more, as an acting judge, was far more vast than what she got exposed to while at the bench, at the Cape Bar. And this is partly because she was mainly briefed on work by the State Attorney's Office, and that private firms are simply not briefing black advocates, and in particular they're not briefing women advocates. So it's a very serious issue that the JSC has been told about repeatedly. In fact, Justice Meyer, the head of the Supreme Court of Appeal, has asked in one of the interviews whether it's fair to ask the candidates for solutions on this issue. If the Judiciary or the JSC has been told about it over and over again over several years, not just in these hearings, who should actually be providing that ultimate solution? That's a question that we still don't have an answer to, Bongi.
Certainly, I tell you, Dianne, that question will never stop coming until something really is done there, because it is one of transformation and certainly a lot of concerns around that. Thank you so much for your time tonight. That's news editor there, Dianne Hawker, who was, of course, just wrapping the day's proceedings, some of the key moments there in those JSC interviews.